Hi, I'm Rick Weatherall, elite coach with Athletes on Track and pro mountain biker for the Subaru Sun and Ski race team. We're out here today to take a look at the trails in the Big Cedar Wilderness area outside of Dallas, Texas, and see what can make a difference in your race. Now here we're going to look at the start straightaway, which is the start that will be used for both the A and B loop starts. It's slightly false flat uphill and just kicks up a little bit on this roller about 150 yards after the start line. A will go left and B will go right. Now here we're going to take a look at the B loop start, which will be taken by the Cat 2 and Cat 3 waves. We've just taken a right off of the start straightaway just after the hill. Now the B loop start is very unique in that it gets very technical and very narrow very quickly after coming off the start straightaway. So if at all possible, try to get a pre-ride in. Even if you don't have much time, just get this first 1 or 1.5 miles of the first part of the B loop, because you'll be coming into this hot with a lot of racers around you, and there's a lot of aspects in this first mile that can be pretty challenging. Now I'm going to let this clip of the first section of the B loop play straight through so you can get an idea of what it looks like. Now keep in mind while you're watching this that all the aspects of the trail on video are muted compared to riding it in real life. So if a downhill looks like it might be a little bit steep on the video, it's very steep in real life, and the same goes for climbs and tight corners. Now you can see here in this clip that clearly there's nowhere to pass once you drop into the first downhill on the single track. So you can get off the start line aggressively, but as soon as you get here, just relax as much as you can and focus on saving energy. Look ahead to the rider in front of you and see where the sharp corners are and where the steep uphills are, so you're downshifting in preparation for those. Now coming up here, we'll drop down into a little gully and pop right back out of it. On the right turn at the top, you'll really want to pay attention to take the correct line. In pre-ride, Mike didn't know the correct line, therefore he took a pretty hard digger there. Don't worry, he's okay. He got up with just a little scratch on his knee. But you can see why we want to pause and take a look at this line. So the key thing here is that there's a route, a parallel route that he's passing on the right side of right now. Passing that route on the right sets you up in poor position to pass the bridge that goes over the log. So what you want to do here, this is Mike's second attempt, is go around the route just on the left side of it, and then you'll be lined up with that little bridge perfectly. So if you don't get a chance to pre-ride, just look for this little gully. It's about 60 to 90 seconds into the B loop from the start line, and just swing the corner wide so that you end up on the left side of that route. From there, you'll be lined up perfectly with the bridge, and it should be no big deal to just ride right off of it. Now the next section of trail that we're going to take a look at is a hard left-hand uphill, almost hairpin switchback, followed by a fairly steep straight climb that's really loose and therefore hard to find traction. Now this trail is both on the A loop and the B loop, and so everyone will be doing it at least once, and Cat 1s and Cat 2s will be doing it more than once. So if you can clear this climb, you can make up a little time throughout the course of the race. Because of the tight switchback that immediately precedes it, it's really hard to carry any momentum at all into this climb, and then it's really hard to find traction coming up. You'll see Mike slip out a couple times here. Now the whole trail is generally loose, but there is one rock right in the middle about 2/3 of the way up that it's not that big of a deal, but you're already going so slow it can really steal a lot of your momentum if you hit it. So coming into the switchback that precedes the climb, you want to make sure that you take a clean line and are ready to put the gas pedal down to get as much momentum out of the corner that you can get before you hit the climb. Once you hit the climb, you want to look to the right side of the trail and pass around that rock I was talking about earlier on the right. Now also you want to pay attention and not be in too low of a gear. While the climb is steep, if you're in too low of a gear, it's easy to put too much torque to the back wheel and spin the tire, and then you'll just stop. You can see this rider goes up in a good gear that's not too low, and even when he does take the wrong line and go right over the rock and get stopped, he's still able to continue. Another thing that can help on climbs like this is your body position. You want to keep your butt on the seat to keep the weight on the back wheel and keep traction, but you also want to keep your torso low and over the front end to keep the front wheel from wandering too much. Now this body position makes it tough to get your maximum torque to the cranks while you're going up this climb, but it's really the best option if you're looking to get up the climb efficiently during a long cross-country race. Now we won't spend too much time on this next section here, but it's worth taking a look at because it was in the race course last year and caught a couple people by surprise that hadn't pre-ridden. This is another area that's on both the A and the B loop, so everyone's going to hit it at least once. Now we've just come by the power station that's real close to the start-finish line, and now we're descending in an open field, and it's a pretty fast descent. Now coming up here after we go around a few of these S-curves is going to be a tight, somewhat tight given the speed, 180 degree left-hand corner. Now that's the one you want to be ready for. It's nothing technical about it, you just want to know it's coming. Here it is right now. Now you want to make sure and grab a few downshifts coming into this corner because you're just going to be climbing right out of it, and there's a couple switchbacks coming up. One 180 right-hander and then a 180 left to take you back into the woods. So we'll just let this clip play out because it's the last few minutes of the B loop into the finish straightaway, the finish line climb. And we'll take this opportunity to talk about some tire and suspension setup for this race. Now when we were pre-riding the Sunday before the race, the course was pretty dry and a lot more dry and loose than it was last year if you were here for last year's race. So unless the course gets a little rain in the week before the race, you're going to want to set your tires and suspension up to reflect that. Given all the tight corners and the loose dirt, you want to have something that's got a little bit more bite on the shoulders on the side of the tire for a front tire. However, you don't want to have a knob that's too big, so if you get a really super aggressive motocross looking front tire, it's going to be too tall for the sand, which is not that deep, it's just loose, and instead those tall knobs will be squirming all over the place and actually make you feel more out of control than if you had a little bit more low profile front tire. Examples of a good front tire for this course is something like a Specialized Fast Track, a WTB Nano Raptor, or a Schwalbe Racing Ralph. All those tires are offered in something that's about a 2.1 or 2.2 width, and the higher volume tire will be a help on this course to help keep traction in some of these loose corners. Now a good rear tire is going to depend on how comfortable you are clearing the loose and steep climbs. If you feel that you have sufficient skills to easily clear the really loose climbs that don't have much traction, I'd think something like a small block 8 or a Specialized Renegade would be a nice fast tire for this fast course. However, if you're not so sure that you can clear all those climbs with like a semi-slick or fast rolling racing tire, all those tires that I just mentioned for the front would also be good for the rear to help you hook up and try to get every last available amount of traction out of those steep climbs. Now for tire and suspension pressure and setup, I would just stick with your normal pressures and normal preloads for suspension. While this course is pretty unique for Texas racing, I don't think there's anything that warrants a unique bike setup because the trail surface itself is all pretty straightforward. So now we're going to look at the very end of the trail here into the left turn on the pavement up to the finish line. Now if your bike has this adjustment, you want to make sure and reach down and lock out all the suspension that you can so that you've got a nice rigid and efficient bike to go up this hill to the finish line. It seems like a trivial fact, but a lot of times guys will forget that in the heat of battle, especially when they're tired at the end of the race. Now the common mistake here will be if you're in a close finish with somebody would be to start sprinting too early. Well, it's only about 150 meters from that corner to the finish line. Since you're going up a hill, that 150 meters is going to take a very long time, much longer than anyone can sustain a full-out max sprint effort. So if you're in a close finish with somebody, resist the temptation to sprint all the way up the steep part. Instead, stay seated and save your kick until you can see the finish line until you're about 50 meters away from it. At this point, the climb becomes a little bit less steep, and so standing, grabbing a gear, and then kicking your sprint in will maximize its effect. So that's it. As always, if you have any questions, find me at the venue on the day before the race, this time on Friday, or shoot me an email, rickweatherald@gmail.com. I'll see you all at the races.